Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jump. Today I'll be ranking all of the Pokemon Generation Starters from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, the Pokemon games, or when it comes to starters, you can only choose one starter, and unless it's either X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, or um, uh, Scarlet and Violet. With those games, you could catch or get one or more starters. And since with the release of the Indigo disc and you are able to getting every single starter, I thought why not rank all of the starters from my least favorite to my favorite, and just talk about why that's the case, and just I think it's mainly just due to like how each one stands out to me, and why I think each of these starters are on the place that they are on. So yeah. So to start off with number 9 being the worst, is probably the Scarlet and Violet starters. Now, in terms of the starters that we've seen, the ones from Scarlet and Violet are still relatively fresh, I would say, in people's minds when it comes to these starters. And yeah, but I would say overall, I would say they're a bit forgettable. I only remember probably I think some of the designs of them, and probably some of the names, like Sprigatito, which is the grass type one, and Squirrelidige. I'm not 100% sure if I'm saying that right. But he's the fire starter, like the final evolution for the fire starter when he gains the ghost type. And I think they are interesting looking. Like all the designs, I think they're quite interesting. But they are a bit forgettable, apart from a few outliers, like with the water starter, like his first form, where he has like that sort of like swept hair to the side. And with Squirrelidige, again, I'm not 100% sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But he's like this giant fire ghost crocodile Pokemon, and yeah, I think overall they're just a bit forgettable. And yeah, I think they're just I don't 100% remember a lot about them. Yeah, so they are really forgettable, kind of like the generation they're from. Let's be honest, because even though I do enjoy some aspects of Scarlet and Violet, yeah, I would say Scarlet and Violet is just not going to be as remembered as a lot of the other generations. So yeah. For number 8 is the Gold and Silver starters. Now these starters are nice. I think the designs are nice. I think they're a bit too blandish, because at least with some of the other starters, they have some interesting designs about them, like with let's say Sceptile. It's basically this giant gecko-based Pokemon, or Charizard is basically a flying fire dragon, that sort of thing. With the Gold and Silver starters, I feel like they are, the design-wise, they're okay. I think the outlier for me personally is probably for Alligator. That's because I feel like I gravitate towards their Pokemon when doing a playthrough of Hard Gold. But yeah, overall, I feel like there could have been a bit more. Maybe if they had been given like a Mega form, maybe, or a Gigantamax form, or something that made them stand out from other starters, or something like that. So yeah. For number 7 is the Sun and Moon starters. Now these starters I think are interesting. I think they're really interesting. I think what brings them down a bit is probably they are connected to Sun and Moon as a whole, because Sun and Moon is an enjoyable game, but they are a bit handholdy, because a lot of the stuff is just like, and of course I think the Pokemon games are handholdy, where you have to like go from place to place, and there are some places that block you off. But I feel like with Sun and Moon, I feel like the whole game just holds your hand throughout the entire game. I think I talked about this during my refused for both Sun and Moon and for their sort of sequel games, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So yeah, I just feel like the starters entering. I do like Decidueye, I like Incineroar, I like Pure Marina. I think that's the name for the water starter for the final evolution. But yeah, I just think it's because they're connected to Sun and Moon. I think that's why they're here on this part of the list. So yeah, for number 6, it's the Ruby and Sapphire starters. Now these starters I think are really fun. I think they're really cool and interesting. I do like how they all have Mega Evolutions, and I think they are really cool and interesting. And I think that what makes them fun, and I think that what makes them a lot more memorable, because they have the Mega Evolutions, and I do like. I think it's because I like their Mega Evolutions, and I like the design for them. For instance, Blaziken, I feel like when it comes to the forms, I feel like Blaziken's the weakest by a bit. It just feels like Blaziken, but he's grown more hair, and like those fire bands he has on his forearms just got longer. It's nice. Swampert, it feels a lot more bulky than regular Swampert, and I do like how it gains like all these muscles and looks more bulky, as I said before. And with Sceptile, I do like the whole detachable tail that it has, and I do like the colours of the red and the yellow and the green, and I do really like them all together. And yeah, I think that what makes them a lot more memorable than probably a lot of the other starters. But yeah, I think they're really enjoyable, and I think they're really cool. For number 5 is the red and blue starters. Now with these starters, I feel like they kind of set the bar when it came to starters, because you got, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander, and they would eventually become Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise. And I feel like they all have very nice designs, and I do like how they all have like different. When it came to like future generations, like Gen 6 and 8, so there being X and Y and Sword and Shield, they all got Mega forms, and as well as Gigantamax forms. But with Charizard, he got 2 Megas over Blastoise and Venusaur, and yeah, and I do see a lot of people when the criticism of Charizard being the having more of the spotlight. As someone who prefers Charizard over the other 2 starters, I do kind of see where Charizard, a lot of the criticism of Charizard getting 2 Mega forms, where the people are where those people are coming from when they talk about Charizard getting more of the spotlight, because like Charizard, he's a very popular, I would say, a very popular Pokemon, not only starter but as well as Pokemon in general, because he's just a giant flying fire lizard, and Blastoise, he's just a tortoise with cannons, and Venusaur is just a walking plant, really. But yeah, I think the red and blue starters are iconic. I would say and I think they help to define what starters could be or could potentially be in future games. So yeah. For number 4, it's the Sword and Shield starters. Now with these starters, I think they are really fun. I think they're really cool looking. I think one of the things that probably lacks, or that they probably lack, is probably a secondary typing, because when you see them, you might think, oh, they might have secondary typing. For instance, Cinderace, I would say, is probably a very blatant example, because he kind of looks like a fighting type as well as a fire type, and he's just pure fire. And then if you look at the grass type, he kind of looks like a grass dark type, and then with the water type, he could either be a water type, or a water dark type, or a water bug type. I feel like he's either one of those typing combinations, in my personal opinion, because he's got like the sort of like reptilian sort of face, but he also looks like a dark type as well. It's kind of one of those weird combinations that he could possibly be. But yeah, but I think what they lack when it comes to dual typings, they gain in the Gigantamax forms, and I do like how they all have something that's unique to them. For instance, for Cinderace, he's got this giant fireball with a face on. With the grass type, he's got the drums, and it kind of reminds me of the Final Smash that Donkey Kong gets in Smash Bros for Wii U, and I think Brawl as well, where he has that drum and he can like every time you get like consecutive hits, the shock waves get louder and more further out. So it kind of reminds me of that. And with the water starter, he gets like this sort of like perch thing, and he I think it's sort of like more of like a water gun sort of thing. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's something like that. So yeah, so I think that's where the Sword and Shield starters kind of gain a bit when it comes to lacking when it comes to like their types and stuff like that. So yeah. For number 3, it's the Black and White starters. Now I think the starters really hold up when it comes to I think when it comes to a lot of the designs, mainly with Samurott. I think Samurott brings the team in with these, and yeah, I think when it comes to starters, I do enjoy Samurott the most, then probably Superior, and then probably Emboar. The least out of the Black and White starters, because with Samurott, he's basically this samurai looking Pokemon. With Superior, he's basically this giant grass snake, and with Emboar, he's just a fighting pig. Basically Ganon from the Zelda series, but on fire. So yeah. And yeah, I think they're all interesting designs. And I do like how in Legends Arceus, you get Hisuian Samurott, and he gains the dark typing. And I feel like that's what, again, kind of like with Sword and Shield starters, I think a secondary typing for both Samurott and Superior were lacking a bit, because with Superior, I think because of his reptilian looking body, he could possibly have a dragon typing, maybe, or probably maybe not a bug type, because I feel like that would be very bad for Superior. But I feel like a dragon type at least, to go with the grass typing, could be good. And Samurott, again, he's got the Hisuian form, he's got the dark type with him for that form, and I feel like that's really cool and really awesome just to see an old starter getting a secondary typing, as well as a new form. With Emboar, it is the third firefighting starter that we had got in a row, which started back with Blaziken, and then Infernape, and now with Emboar. But overall, I feel like all three starters have really awesome, really cool designs. For number 2 is the Diamond and Pearl starters. Now, these are probably the first starters that I saw in the Pokemon series, because I remember when I was younger, like, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure how old I was, but when I first started playing, when I first played a bit of Pokemon, I remember it was Diamond and Pearl with a friend of mine. I played a bit of his copy of either Diamond or Pearl, and then skip a few years later, I played Pearl with another friend of mine, and those again, it was those starters. And yeah, I think when it comes to all other designs, they are all interesting and adds more stuff to them as well when it comes to complementing their typings and the design. So, for instance, with Infernape and probably Monferno as well, because they're both firefighting, both of their the designs for them are really stand up and hold up really well. With Torterra, He's got the ground grass type. Again, it works really well because he's got that massive tree on his back and he looks like he's one with the earth. And with Empoleon, he's got the water steel typing. And yeah, I think again it complements him really well because he's got that sort of part trident on his face. That's really fun. I think, and he's also got those he's got like those steel flippers that he's got, and they look really cool, and they each complement each other really well. And I think, and again, it's like for me personally, they are those are some of my personal favorites when it comes to like them as a whole, and I think they just look really well and how they start off with these small, adorable looking Pokemon with like you've got like a small turtle looking Pokemon, then you've got a small penguin looking Pokemon, and then you've got a small chimp Pokemon. And then they fully evolve into these walking tanks, powerhouses, stuff like that, and they're just really cool and really awesome. And for number 1, it's the X and Y starters. Now, these starters, I think are really interesting when it comes to the world of Pokemon, because they are. I think I said this in my X and Y Let's Play, but the X and Y starters are all based on RPG elements or roles. So you've got Greninja, who's based on the Rogue. Delphox, who's based on the magician or the wizard role, and then you've got Chestnut. There we go, who's based on the rogue. No, not the rogue. The knight or the barbarian, I believe. Don't 100% remember. And those are all things you see in role-playing games. And I think that's really cool. And like with the Diamond and Pearl starters, the X and Y starters, when it comes to their fully evolved forms, suit each other really well, because you've got Chestnut, who's this giant, bulky Pokemon, who's got this sort of like shield thing on his back, this shield shell, say that five times fast, on his back. With Delphox, he's got this stick, this like fire stick that can shut out fire and psychic energy. And with Greninja, he looks like a ninja, so he can like use water shurikens, he can use a smoke screen, he can learn a lot of like moves, or some moves that are ninja based. And yeah, and I do like how his tongue is his scarf, because if you look at the scarf, it's basically a tongue that's around Greninja's mouth, and that's a really awesome design and a nice little detail for Greninja that I do like about him. And yeah, I do enjoy them as a whole. I think when it comes to like, I think it's just because X and Y are my favorite generations at the moment. I do enjoy those starters. So yeah, and I think they all have interesting designs. So yeah. So that's been me ranking all of the Pokemon starters from my least favorite to my favorite. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.